When I first started teaching English, I was like 22. When you're like walking into a high school and everyone's like, ooh, you kind of feel like a kind of star. But I can't say it like as a 35-year-old. Like, I miss like high school kids thinking I was cool. So I can't say that.
Today, we've invited an editor/writer, housing/study coordinator, and a software engineer to discuss their life as ex-English teachers.
My name is Aaron. I'm an ex-English teacher.
My name is Laura, and I'm an ex-English teacher.
My name is Blaine, and I'm an ex-English teacher.
What skills from English teaching can be useful in other jobs?
Japanese work culture.
Dealing with people.
Explaining difficult concepts to people with no frame of reference.
You know, working in a Japanese school, it's like you need to be like, there's nothing to do. Well, you better wash windows.
You learn real quick that you got to figure out how to look like you're doing something, even if you're not actually doing something.
Yeah. My old high school that I was at ALT that I worked for, they asked us not to eat McDonald's too close to the school. They didn't want the students to...
Negative influence?
Yeah, they didn't want us to witness us eating fast food.
Like one time I was trying to teach some of my kids how to play cribbage, which is a card game, and I brought it all in, and then I get called aside by one of the teachers that they're actually not supposed to bring anything to the school that is not directly related to their studies. You always get like snacks brought back by people who went on trips, but we were never allowed to actually eat them in the staff room because the students might see us and get jealous that we had snacks and they didn't. So they really tiptoed around everything to make sure that the students didn't feel bad.
Yeah. At least in my experience, a lot of schools I worked at, it almost felt like the students ran the school.
No, that 100%.
Yeah, especially the high schools. It felt really weird. All the teachers kind of hid in the teacher room, and just like a jungle outside. It was some scary times.
Bedlam, I'm sure.
Yeah, prepare for like complaints from parents that seem so minuscule. It's like you've been slouching a little bit. Can they ask? We want you to while you're walking or something like that, or it's like, can you
yawning?
Yeah, we caught you yawn. The parents are complaining you yawned in class, so you got to prepare to deal with that.
Yo, y'all had a strict school.
Well,
I fall asleep in my classes.
what?
Took a little nod off.
Even my I teach online like twice a week, and one of the parents complained that I was not sitting up straight enough.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What hobbies help land your career outside of English teaching?
Writing.
Studying Japanese.
Video games.
Yeah, I came here because I like the language, so that's what I would do in my spare time.
The reason I started actually doing what I'm doing now was making games for my students at my school. We actually had a lot of technology that we had access to, like, well, not smart boards. Before it was like projectors and stuff like that. And we would play Hangman over and over again, and we just get so sick of it. It's like you're writing letters in the wrong place. You forget the word that you have. And so I thought, surely there must be some software version of this out there as a teaching tool. And the internet answered back, no, there isn't. And don't call me Shirley. Sorry. I had to get the airplane reference in there somehow. So I just...
Did you see his urge to not do it?
Basically, I just made my own version because why not?
I came to Japan on a communications degree, or I came to learn communications, and writing and film was my main subject. While I was teaching, I liked writing about my experiences, travel, writing about movies, writing about Japanese films, and just pitching those articles to media companies. At the time, people weren't vlogging in Japan wasn't really a thing. Now it's everywhere, of course, but yeah, just writing in general, and that helped me get out of English teaching.
Escape.
Escape.
Break free.
What made you leave English teaching?
A career that matched my goals.
I never wanted to in the first place.
Ooh.
The career ceiling. Yeah, so the career ceiling, it's a very real thing in English teaching. If you really want to be like an English teacher, then you really just gonna have to double down on that and find a way to make that like a proper career, whether it's academia or starting up your own English school, which I actually know a few people who've done and been very successful at. That is definitely doable. But your typical ALT, Kaiwa jobs, great as they are, great way to get here, great way to get experience. And I absolutely valued what I did while I was doing it. But there comes a point where you can't really go any further with this. There is a definite limit. And it's just a matter of knowing when that is. And then sooner rather than later, you got to have an exit strategy of some kind, which can be difficult, but it's absolutely necessary because you're probably not going to be an ALT until you retire, and the school doesn't want that, and the companies that send them out don't want that either. It's because they're going to have to eventually either move you to other schools because you can't stay in the same place all the time, or they also have to start paying you more, and it makes it difficult for them. So ultimately, yeah, think about that ceiling when you're in that job.
Yeah, being a ALT has a lot of advantages. Freedom to do other things. Depending on the school, you might get a nice vacation in the summer and the winter.
I learned my trade, my craft, in my free time, both while I was working and, being an ALT. It's nice because it's 9 to 5. You don't have to take your work home with you.
Yes.
And if you really want to, you can you could spend your time going out or going to the beach or partying or anything like that, or you could spend that extra time working towards another career. It just depends on how you prioritize that extra time.
Even like the average, if when you're actually teaching, the hours are 18 to 24 hours of actual teaching, maybe not even that much. A lot of time, like we said before, you're in the teacher room looking like you're doing something. Use that time to study Japanese. Use that time to look at other jobs on GaijinPot jobs.
Nice.
Yeah, so I never wanted to teach English, but I needed to do what I had to do to get the visa, so I did it for 3 years. And like Blaine said, when I was doing it, I valued my work and I did what I had to do, but I did what I had to do.
I agree.
What do you miss about English teaching?
When I first started teaching English, I was 22. So when you're walking into a high school and everyone's like, ooh, you kind of feel like a kind of star. But I can't say it as a 35-year-old. I miss high school kids thinking I was cool. So I can't say that. So I need to think of a new answer.
I wanted to write some kids, but I'm like, that would be rude. Don't do that. But y'all can know, some kids I miss. But most of you guys, I don't miss you. God bless you. That's all I'm gonna say.
3, 2, 1.
When it's easy, it's really easy.
The free time.
The aha moments.
Ooh.
Sometimes when you explain something in such a way that the kids just get it and they have that aha moment and you see it on their faces, it's priceless.
Yeah, like when Aaron mentioned earlier that sometimes you just have a lot of time and you just are trying to look like you're busy, but I use that time to be able to study Japanese, and here I am now. So you can escape too. There's hope.
Yeah, basically the same thing. When there's times you don't have anything to do, you can just relax, chill out. Also, the free food, depending if you work at a high school, they might give you free lunches. I miss that. I miss the free food.
I don't miss the Kyushoku.
Nobody ever fed me.
What's that? Oh, sorry. It's the school lunch they provide.
Yeah.
Some of them can be good. Sometimes you're eating turd fish and it's not so much fun.
Unless the school requires you to eat with the kids, and this is usually the case if you're working at a preschool or with toddlers. They want you to eat your lunch with the kids, and it's disgusting. And you'll hate yourself, and you'll wonder, and you'll quit the day you start, which is what I did.
It was something similar, but I taught mostly in junior high, and sometimes it was good, but sometimes you're dealing with, especially the second year students, they're about grade 8. They're angsty teenagers, and they just don't want to talk to anybody. It can be a little bit depressing, but for the most part, it was okay.
There were moments where I would sit down and have lunch with the kid that was obviously having a bad day or is kind of the loner. Just be like, hey man, what's up? Pokemon? Nice. Pokemon lunchbox? Nice. Yeah. Those were cool times.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an aha moment, but sometimes you do make an impact in the kid's life.
Yeah.
I remember I taught this kid when he was in first year, and then I taught him again in third year, and then the third year for a while he became a Futoko like kid, so he didn't come to school. But then the last day he came in and he was gone for a long time, and then when he came back I did his test and he did really well, and I was like, oh, like how were you able to speak so well? He's like, oh, I was playing games. But I just remember that at one time he hugged me and he was like, oh, and I was like, what? Like Japanese people don't do that, and it's kind of weird, right? To, I don't know, as an American, but I don't know, maybe you can cut that out, throw that out the window. But regardless, he was moved to the point to do that. So I was like, dang, I don't feel like I did a lot, but sometimes you do impact kids in a meaningful way. So that can be nice.
It's kind of weird, but you could be like the father or mother figure to a lot of these kids, especially if it's the father, because fathers are, especially the work culture has them working many hours.
Or maybe they're like what they call tanshin funin, where the father is like literally living in another city while he's working and only gets to come home on the weekends. That happens a lot too.
Yeah.
What job hunting challenges did you have, and how did you overcome them?
So I don't know about everybody else's experience, but my experience when I was looking for a job that was not English teaching related, people tended to assume that I was not able to really handle computers. Like I had someone ask me, oh, do you use Word? Just because I think the image of ALTs is you're kind of like a human speech recorder, right? The play button, I don't know, something like that. You just kind of read stuff.
Human tape recorder, yes.
Human tape recorder, that's the phrase. Yeah, so like people would be like, can you use Word? I'm like, do you mean Word from like 98 that I had in my house, like from when I was a child, that I'm pretty sure that I know how to use better than you?
For me, it was lack of confidence, really. I mean, especially if you're starting something new from scratch and you weren't like, that's not what your degree was in. It can be a bit worrying that somebody will actually take you without any experience.
It's good to get experience with Japanese interviews regardless, because they can be very different from what you're used to. For me, I'd say lack of Japanese skills. Even when I was applying to jobs that would say no Japanese required, when I got to the interview, they would bring in somebody who would want to speak in Japanese, and then I would start panicking. Eventually I got over that, but yeah, I would say even if you think your industry isn't going to need Japanese, you should study and focus on Japanese.
How did you build a resume outside of English teaching?
For me, as soon as I started university here, I started writing and pitching to websites and magazines around Japan. There was a company that just started, and they were looking for a regular writer. I sent them an article. They said they liked it, but they were going to go with someone else. I asked, well, can I just work for you for free? And of course they were like, yeah, work for us for free. And I just kept sending them articles, and eventually they hired me when that person left and actually paid me. And from there, I just made sure that while I was teaching English, at the same time, I was writing and editing, and I was taking online courses for technical writing and writing white papers. Any kind of skills I could use that I could learn on either during my free time or at home. And if I did like a freelance job for a company like 1 or 2 or 3 times, I would, hype that up on my resume. Worked for this printing company as a advisor, like for on contract basis, something like that.
Same thing with me. I just started building things. There's a bunch of different ways you can go about doing things. So one of them is, of course, building your own software. And that sort of makes a portfolio. And what's nice about that is that there is a service called GitHub. You can put your stuff up there, and that sort of acts as your portfolio. People can actually go in and look at the code and see what you've done. Another way is, it might be a little bit difficult, but it still can be done, is find open source projects that are looking for contributors. You basically submit your changes or your ideas. They look it over, they give you feedback, and you work back and forth until you finally get it submitted. And then that becomes part of that corpus as well as your own. A lot of people on, say, LinkedIn, for example, will have links to their GitHub pages.
Build a portfolio, have something you can show for whatever you like to do, whether it's making photography, making movies, modeling. I did freelance modeling whenever I needed to pay the bills, Like I had a portfolio that I could show people, that I could give to agencies. I had a writing portfolio that I could give to, marketing companies. I had a teaching resume. I had a resume for everything so that I could always just hand it off, and I just kept building it.
Yeah, I think I kind of just doubled down on Japanese, and I just tried to I didn't have so much of a variety. I just kind of focused on that and studied as much as possible and tried to get the highest qualifications within my range or whatever, and then just kind of moved in that direction.
I think that's a really good point too, because if what they're looking for is something entry level, and if you're a good personality fit and you've got the language skills, chances are they're going to train you up to do whatever it is needs to be done anyway. Yeah. Particularly, and especially this is true for things like, say, sales positions, for example. And that's the thing about sales, is that is mostly a people skill. But having that Japanese and those people skills is really what's going to help you get your foot in the door a lot better than just that alone.
I think the only other thing that I did was maybe, because I didn't have as much variety, I would say, but I would not fluff up, but you use the skills that you learned. Because, for example, when I taught, I wasn't an assistant language teacher. I would teach by myself. So I would and I had a lot of freedom, to be honest. Not everyone's situation is kind of different, but in my classroom, I could come up with a bunch of different things to do and activities, and I would say, you phrase those things in a way that sound good on a resume. So it's like, oh, I came up with games for kids. No, you write creative problem solver.
Yeah.
And then you write, kind of expand on that.
Yeah, and if you absolutely you want to hype up your resume, but at the same time, in Japan, prepare for the person interviewing you to never having seen your resume. So they'll ask you mark by mark, well, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? So prepare to have a good answer for your fluff, because they will bring it up right in front of you.
Yeah, embellish within reason. Don't ever make anything up.
What advice would you give someone wanting to transition away from English teaching?
Study Japanese.
Study Japanese. Don't give up. Don't get disheartened. There will be times, at least I know I got disheartened many times. Oh, this is going to change my career forever. That didn't work out. Or when I first came to Japan, I thought I was going to be a documentary filmmaker. All my classes were for documentary filmmaking, were for editing, video. And then I got an internship at a video production company, and I hated my life. And I realized that I did not want to do it. So if things don't work out, maybe they're not supposed to. Maybe it's okay if it doesn't work out. Maybe it wasn't supposed to work out, and you'll find something that you like. Japan's, especially Tokyo. Tokyo's a big place. There's lots of stuff to do.
I'd say be open to new ideas. Don't focus, say, I want to do this and do it. You never know what your niche is going to be. I first came here, believe it or not, my original plan was to study Japanese and learn about the culture. I wanted to go back home to Canada and go to law school. I wanted to do international business law. Software engineering wasn't even remotely on my radar. I always thought that I did not have the kind of mentality that is needed to do that kind of job. And that's what I'm doing now, and I love it. I could not think of a better fit for me.
Yeah, the same thing kind of happened to me. I was kind of lost after giving up on film and editing, and I was taking a Japanese film course, and I wrote a review of Sword of Doom, a old 1960s Tetsuya Nakadai film, and the teacher didn't know my name, and she didn't know I was in the room, and she was like, but Aaron's work is really good. He's not here today, but it was so good. And I was just like, I'm right here. Thank you. Felt good.
I had to help.
Felt really good. Modeling. Try modeling. If you're tall, you can do it.
Yeah, I think piggybacking off of what Blaine said earlier about the apply for a job even if you don't think you'll get it. Actually, this job, I was 100% sure I wouldn't get it.
Yeah. Hey, me too.
Yeah, because it didn't have anything to do with English teaching. It was related to real estate. I was like, I don't have real estate experience, but I was like, I also don't have a job, and I got 2 weeks to get a visa. So I applied for it, and here I am, 6 years later. So believe in yourself.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And what Aaron said earlier, don't give up on not just applying, but also on your dreams, I guess, entirely. Especially in the day and age. That's the phrase, right? Of social media, where you can, even if you don't work for like a particular company doing that thing, keep doing that thing for yourself. For example, like people, they'll be like crocheting on TikTok and selling their stuff on the side, like on like Etsy or whatever the Japanese equivalent would be. So don't completely give up on it. Keep doing it while you do your job, and you got side hustles.
Yeah, find the niche. Find the niche and stick with it. Like English teaching is, even if it's not something you want to do for the rest of your life, it's a good opportunity to work and live in Japan while you focus on other things. It's just some people get kind of, what's the word, complacent into the really short hours, into the everything's already set up for you. Depending on the school, like you don't got to do anything. You just walk in a room and read a board, and it can feel really easy. But yeah, don't get complacent.
I'm sorry if I may add one more thing with regards to that. Actually, the last job that I worked at, the interviewer, when I went in, I didn't want to teach English from the beginning, but it was funny because during my interview, he told me, he's like, you can think of this job as like, not a placeholder, but what's that thing where you go to like the next step?
Stepping stone?
Yeah, he was like, you can think of it as a stepping stone. So just do your best while you're here and then move forward.
Yeah.
So like do your best teaching English and doing the stuff, but just know that it could be a good opportunity to build up your skills to get other jobs on GaijinPot jobs.
Yeah, especially if you're at ALT, there's a reason why they put you on a yearly contract. It's like they don't expect you to be around too long.
Yeah, it's kind of an unspoken rule that they know that people are using it to either experience life in Japan or to step off to something else. Of course, they're going to be happy if you stick around longer, but they're, at the same time, I think the companies also like to have new blood coming through from time to time. It keeps everything fresh.
What is your funniest memory from English teaching?
I just started at a new high school, and it was like one of those where the kids kind of run the school, and they were being kind of rowdy, and the Japanese teacher in English asked, all right guys, come on everybody, settle down. Let's settle down, please pay attention. And some student made fun of him. He mocked him. He's like, please pay attention. And I lost it. I got so angry. I was like, Genji! Like, that's your sensei! Sensei! He is sensei desu! And it got really quiet and really awkward. I was so, I just lost it. And for like 5 seconds, I was like, okay, now, repito. And after I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get in trouble. I wasn't supposed to do that. But in the teacher room, the sensei came up to me and he was like, Aden-san, arigatou gozaimasu. And he gave me like a pat on the back and he was like, thank you so much. And I could tell he's been wanting to yell at those kids.
I've known of some people who had a habit of doing that, and they didn't last very long.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, like 99% of the time, I'm the nice guy. I'm the cool teacher. But man, I don't like if you got a kid that like a lot of. Tell me if you know what this is. 5, 4, 3, 2, right? And then they sit down. There's gonna be a time where a kid's gonna go 2, 1, and you're gonna be like, well, what do I do? Like, they're gonna call your bluff. So you need to prepare to how to deal with that. Like, and for most cases, just like, all right, well, I'm gonna go get the staff, and you're gonna get in trouble. Like, and then they got you for the rest of the school year, and then you're done. Like,
I thought was it supposed to be like the funniest moment.
I mean,
I was like, it just sounded
well,
like,
I mean, just like
stories of terror.
stories. I mean, for me, it's fun. Looking back on it, it's funny. It's just because, just like a little 6-year-old, like Momoko, just being like 5, 4. What are you gonna do if I get what are you gonna do when you get the 0? What are you gonna do? Like, she's right. I ain't gonna do anything. Like, there's also like, I guess I don't know if it's related to English teaching, but kids in general will just come up to you and say the weirdest, creepiest things. Just like they'll like walk up to you, especially in English. Your head is funny. Like, what do you mean? What's wrong with my head? Like,
When did you know it was time to get out of English teaching?
high school, Mean Girls, and Always Sick.
3 years.
When I was treated like a tape recorder. All right, you'll notice that the human part is scratched out of there. It's a very poorly kept secret that the ALT's job is more often than not being a human tape recorder. I didn't mind that at all. as long as you didn't forget the human part of the equation. Unfortunately, I worked with this one particular teacher who, for whatever reason, he did not see me as a person so much as a tool to be used in the classroom. He would never consult with me on anything. He would come up with all of the ideas for the class, even though by that point I'd been teaching for 9-10 years, so I knew what I was doing. He would come up with the games out of this crappy little book of games that he had and wouldn't even let me help him demonstrate the games. He explained it all in Japanese. Like, okay, Mr. Armstrong, just go play with this group over here. But the worst part of all was he would be in class and he would be speaking in Japanese, writing stuff on the board, please. And then I go and say, okay, and then writing more stuff, please. That was like the extent of our interaction. But what really took the cake was he got married, went on his honeymoon, didn't tell me that my classes had been changed. I go up to the classroom thinking it's our normal time, and it's the math teacher's there. Like, nobody told you that he's on his honeymoon? Like, okay, maybe this isn't the job for me anymore. Maybe it's time to start thinking about something else.
Okay, so basically when you teach toddlers, you are perpetually sick. You are always sick. You always have a cold because they always have a cold. I was teaching English at a toddler's preschool, basically, and there was one student who just looked a little bit iffy. There's just something off about him. And right after class, I went to IKEA, and I got a big order of meatballs. And I ate those meatballs, and about 7 hours later, I was hunched over in front of a toilet, puking my brains out. I felt like I was dying, and I called the school at around 7 a.m. begging them to please let me stay home, and they were asking, "Are you sure? Why? Can't you just tough it out?" And I was like, that's it. Like, I'm done. And it turns out that almost all the kids also got perpetually sick or were puking their guts out because of that one sick student. So yeah, sick students and mean high school girls scared me out of English teaching.
For me, 3 years, I don't know where I'd heard it, but I think it's part of the glass ceiling a little bit. After a while, you're just doing the same thing, and people, when you go to look for jobs, people are not going to know what it is that you do as an English teacher. They have very little information. So the longer that you do it, the longer that you are useless. Just get out as soon as you can if you are planning on doing something that's not English teaching related.
Can I change my answer real quick? Can I
No.
can I take an alternative take? Because that, you made me realize the actual, now that I remember.
Yo, meatballs was great. What are you talking
The
about?
meatball story is awesome, though.
Yeah.
Felt like a clown. When I was in university, my communications teacher was a very smart man. He gave me lots of advice, and the best piece of advice he ever gave me is like the last day of class, and he asked me what I was going to do, and I told him I was kind of disheartened at the time because I just got out of a bad internship editing, and I said, I don't know, man, I guess maybe I'll just keep teaching English and just ride it out. And he said, Aaron, you don't want to do that. These people are clowns. And at the time, I thought, I'm not a clown. I'm doing a good thing. And then I was teaching English, and they had an event, and they asked me to come to it, and they pulled out a clown suit. And they asked me to put it on. And I danced around and taught English in a clown suit. And that's when I knew, I'm done with this. I'm out. He was right.
Do you regret English teaching?
Nope, but I should have studied more.
No.
Not even a little. Even if you didn't enjoy teaching English, even if it wasn't overall negative per se, if it gives you a chance to get somewhere else, great. It got you to Japan. I mean, how many people do you know from your home country or hometown got to come here and live here and experience life here? That's a pretty rare gift.
Yeah, as much as I complain about the chillins, there were some cute ones. You know, like they kind of, you like I said earlier, like you impact their life, especially like you spend so much time with them, right? Like you could be like a second mother or a second father in their eyes from what they see. And so, yeah, like you can impact people positively, and sometimes you get impacted yourself. Like I've met students who have really touched me, and I still think about them this day, and I'm like, dang, I hope they're doing good, and I hope they're doing great. There's some that I'm like, I won't say what it is that I think about them, but yeah, like it's good. And like Blaine said, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for having gone through that.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to clarify something. My teaching experience wasn't negative overall. It was actually quite positive. Just didn't want to give that impression. That's all. So.
Yeah, I enjoyed English teaching for the most part. I learned more about Japanese culture and than I probably ever would have anywhere else in any other position. Yeah, there was lots of good memories, lots of good moments. Like I said, there was an impact. I believe I had a good impact with some of the kids. And yeah, it helped me get to Japan. I know a lot of people I myself, we joke about English teaching, and especially online you see a lot of people clown on English teachers. But I mean, if you're doing it well, it's a good opportunity. It's a good opportunity for you, and you're doing something to benefit society in a way. Not to get all
Grandiose.
No, it is
Yeah,
true though. It
yeah.
is what we do. Yeah, or what they do, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a good teacher, and then they have a good impression of a foreigner, because sometimes you might be the only foreigner that they come in contact with.
Even if you are just using it as a stepping stone, like you should consider what you're doing. You might actually be having an impact on someone's lives, or you could be their only the only foreigner they talk to. So you should keep that in mind.
Actually, I had a little bit of a story that goes along with that. We were talking about the bad kids, and I had a group of students they're not bad kids, rowdy more than anything else, but they were, the other teachers didn't seem to want to deal with them. It was the sports festival one year, and I knew that these kids really liked Eminem, and I basically got put into the role of handling the music for the sports festival. And I found out when these kids were going to be coming on, they were third year and they were doing the tug of war. And so I picked Lose Yourself by Eminem as the song that they came in on. And those kids just lost it. Because for the first time, they actually felt included. Because everybody else, they always wanted, the happy and cheery music or J-pop and stuff like that. It was all fair and good. But for once, somebody actually thought about them and gave them something that made them feel included. And at the dinner afterwards, we all went out for drinks, and the PE teacher, who was mostly in charge of the whole setup, says, "That was really nice of you to do that. They felt included. I'm glad that you did that. Thank you so much." So you can absolutely have a positive impact on these kids in a way that you'll never know.
What's the sorry, as an aside, what's a New Zealand thing called haka?
The haka, yeah.
Haka. I was asked to teach at my company asked me to teach at an English camp for a week. So they sent me out to the countryside with this high school, and I was just with them for a week, at this resort and teaching them and doing games and stuff. But the high school the kids, they really liked me. Students really liked me, and on the final day, they surprised me. They asked me to come into the auditorium. And I guess their thing was rugby. The school's name is rugby, and the whole school did they set me down in the middle of the auditorium, and they did a haka for me. Wow. And it kind of teared me up. And then they all bowed to me. You have 300 kids doing the haka and bow to me, and I was like, yo, that's cool. So yeah, if you're lucky, you get a chance to make an impact, or at least feel like you made an impact. Yeah.
Oh, you probably made more of an impact than you think.
Yeah. If I may add, sorry, just one more thing. In addition to, I think what you mentioned earlier was like it depends on what your school allows you to do, because some schools will restrict you and you really are just a like tape recorder, stuff like that. But if you have a little bit more freedom, like you can impact them in ways by like sharing music with them, or like you're kind of like a cultural representative a little bit. So like for the last day of class, usually the two semesters before the last semester, I would do like quiz games, and I would incorporate elements of like, you know, Japanese songs and things that, so they see like, oh, like, you know, they feel like not seen and heard, but like things that they can connect with in English class. And I would do things like that. Or the last class, for one of my last classes, that when I left for the third graders, I taught them like the cha-cha slide. I was like, bro, this is the last class. I was like, we got 5 minutes. Yeah. So, you know, you teach them fun elements that it's not, English isn't just like this boring thing, because a lot of them have a really negative image of English teaching. So some of them have told me, they're like, you changed the way I thought of English. And it's through doing things like that.
I showed my my students we had a big debate because it was the English version versus the Japanese version of Dragon Ball Z. It was so I was showing it, like we had a big screen. I was like, this is the real Dragon Ball. Like, it's like, ah, man. And they were like, no, no. And I played the Japanese, ah, man. And we're having like a back and forth. Instead, you got the Japanese. That's not cool. It doesn't pump me up.
Good job, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.